discussing an essay that we just published, Beyond the Limitation Game. The essay is about three things, really. The question starts with what if technological progress gets us to the point where we have abundance in physical products and services? So as we progress technologically, there's a lot of work that is being replaced by robots. And the question then comes, okay, what does that actually mean? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And the answer to that is that we will never run out of work. In other words, work as solving problems and having meaningful activities for people actually will increase, because with menial work being substituted with robots, there will be a lot more, as I call it, humane jobs for people to be solved. The second question is there a limit to wealth creation? And this might sound as maybe a bit of an astonishing question, but if you think it through, there is a very close relationship between wealth creation and status and vanity and things along those lines. And there's a good point to be made that at some point of wealth creation, actually the elites might not even have an interest in further wealth creation, because it makes their status and vanity and those types of desires less useful. And if that's the case, then we would run the risk of having an innate disincentive to continuously create wealth. Now, my answer to that is no. I think that's the third point. There is a case to be made, and this is an argument that I borrow from Nick Bostrom in his latest book, where he talks about this on the book tour. He spoke about this, so I just want to give credit where credit's due. And he opened the question: look, it's been a little bit disappointing how people have continuously splurged in vanity projects and sort of the Marxian utopia of having machines do the work and we people all live in happiness together doesn't seem to be realistic, because there is this concept of scarcity and vanity, which are deeply ingrained traits that humans have, and it comes from the fact that over the millennia, or since people exist, or Homo sapiens, we've been characterized by scarcity. So it makes perfect sense to have a genetic predisposition for status signaling, because in a world of scarcity, you want to signal to your mates and maybe other people, but certainly the mates, so meaning those that you want to have offsprings with, that you are resourceful. So vanity is a valuable trait. Status, vanity, those things. I'm bundling them. Of course, they're not exactly the same thing, but just for the purpose of this episode, I'm bundling them. So those are important traits that could actually lose their importance. In other words, they could cease to be classifiers in the evolutionary game in a world of abundance. This is a hopeful statement, but it's in line with David Deutsch's optimism. Optimism in the context of anything that is possible under the laws of physics can be done. Knowledge creation increases wealth by opening up more possibilities for transformation, and knowledge creation is essential for wealth creation and might actually, at best, maybe even reduce the importance of status as an evolutionary classifier. And in that context, we could actually end up in a something like a Marxian utopia. Maybe not exactly how Marx described it. We're also 200 years further. But we could have a situation where it actually might make sense for parents to teach their kids to, help others, work with, disadvantaged people, or do that kind of, do those types of things, not because it helps you get into university, but because that's really all that's left. There's no point of buying a Ferrari when Ferraris are relatively cheap to have. Now, of course, there will be always an industry of scarcity: real estate, gold watches, companies like Hermes, they make it a business to produce scarce goods, it might just look more and more stupid to buy such products. So this is the concept of the essay, and the title Beyond the Limitation Game is a little bit of a play with the imitation game of Alan Turing. And the relationship there is, of course, that the imitation game is sort of the springboard for AI, and AI might actually bring us beyond the limitation game, which is when scarcity is an evolutionary classifier. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's June 3rd, 2024. This is Krim Delko. For the day, the fund is up 90 basis points. The market is up 10 basis points. For the year, we are down 9.2%. The market is up 10.8%. We're underperforming by 20%. Just real quick, NVIDIA has announced some new developments, some next generation products at the Taiwan Giga Compute show. And I think this is in line with what we're going to expect from NVIDIA going forward, which is always to be several steps ahead of competition and also fuel demand for, in particular, very compute-intensive multimodal foundation models and robotic models. Now let's use this as a segue. Robotic models mean, in other words, we are at the dawn of the humanoid robot age. I think it's fair to say we're actually changing our mission statement in a little bit. We're still, the purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to invest in fundamental new concepts in engineering practice. However, we see it now as more important to focus a little bit more on autonomy, because autonomy will bring a faster transformation in the energy infrastructure, which is what we've been investing in over the last decade. And I think as a new theme, we are now also investing in robotics because we want to free humanity of menial labor and open up new opportunities for more humane jobs. So these are the two new pillars now. We have energy transformation away from carbon industries, and we have work transformation away from menial jobs. Now, let's use this as a segue. In Bostrom's conversations, I haven't read the book, but the conversations around the book have circled about the concept of, okay, what do we do when robots do all the work? And I think that's the wrong question to start with. This is definitely the wrong question, because we will never run out of work. This is an inconsistency in itself, because humans are geared towards solving problems. And with robots and AI, I'm going to just use this now as a placeholder for artificial intelligence. Whether it's embodied or not doesn't really matter. But this ability to generate machines that have cognitive abilities will just increase the scope of work that can be done by machines, and therefore free humanity of menial jobs. This is the low-hanging fruit. We can go further, of course. We can ask ourselves whether machines can do more interesting work. But my conjecture is that anything machines can do is actually work humans shouldn't be even doing. And while that might sound a little bit harsh, and maybe people might feel nostalgic about driving trucks or about filling in spreadsheets or writing marketing collateral or acting, for that matter, the acting that can be done by our current technologies, and maybe the next 5 years at least, I don't think it's the kind of acting that you want your child to go to acting school for, right? It's the kind of acting that maybe a Denzel Washington does in Training Day, or Daniel Day-Lewis does in Lincoln, and that's going to be a while. Certainly possible that we can even supplement that with machines, but we're not there yet anytime soon. But that kind of acting, the evening TV show about the detective that uncovers murder, and I don't know, those types of things, that the cookie cutter kind of acting could be also replaced by machines pretty fast. Now, before I go into the conversation of what happens if robots do all the work, let me just recap what is so interesting about artificial intelligence today. Why is it relevant? Why are we having this discussion today and not 10 or 20 years ago? So what happened in the last 10 years is that we found ways to teach machines through data-driven models how to do things. And we started with classifying pictures. We are now at the point where cars can drive themselves, where machines can write poems, summarize books, write marketing collateral, answer questions. And the reason they're able to do that is because we found ways, again, to train them through data and not through explicit programming. This is the big breakthrough. The convolutional neural net architecture that Jan LeCun and others invented 40 years ago, if I'm not wrong, in the 80s, definitely, is in a nutshell a way to think about the following way. You create something called a filter, which is, think of it like a lens by which you scan what you see, and that filter is trained to classify. So the filter is scanned to see a tree, the filter is scanned to see a car, the filter is scanned to see a person, and if it sees a person, it classifies, okay, I'm seeing a person. So this is kind of the beginning of computer vision, which then enables planning and execution of robotic tasks such as full self-driving, or in the future, humanoid robots. On the just textual side, let's say, for example, ChatGPT, you have a little bit of a different approach. It's called a transformer platform, where a foundation model is trained on finding relationships between so-called tokens. The tokens are not words, but let's say 2 or 3 letters combined, or spaces, or like that's a whole science in itself. But think of tokens as sort of the unit of analysis. So if I have a text, I might use, again, a few letters together or a token. So it's not typically a word, it's less than that, smaller unit. And then we run these gigantic cross-correlation matrices where we see how things relate to each other. And then once we know that, we can then train a model to fine-tuning to, for example, answer a question like, what is the best poem, in your opinion, that Shakespeare wrote? If you ask it that question, it then goes in its multi-dimensional cross-correlation matrix and finds the relationships between the words that you put in and the relationships that most likely answer would be, and therefore gives you a good answer. So this is, in a nutshell, what's possible today. And the way this is driven is mainly by compute and memory and scale. So what works, to paraphrase one of the OpenAI lecturer that I had the chance to attend to this semester at Stanford, he said that what seems to work best is large general models and lots of compute. So we found this way, we found this trajectory, and now we're on the path to build machines that can do more and more work. And the work they're doing right now, and probably in the foreseeable future, is what I call menial work. That is work that doesn't have RFC, the 3 pillars of humanity: risk, fight, creativity. Let me parse that a little bit. Risk-taking is the concept of doing something where the uncertainty is relatively high and the payoffs are also relatively high. Fight means you disagree. You try to change somebody's mind. You change your own mind by doing that. So you have this exploitation versus exploration trade-off continuously working within you and also within the context of your work or the people you're around. And then creativity is, again, try to step out of what you see and what you know. This is roughly the way I see it. So those 3 things will stay human for a long time. Now, there's other things that humanity has. For example, the humanity itself, so comforting patients in a hospital, taking care of elderly people. There I am a bit ambivalent, because I think it's conceivable that a machine can actually build a rational and emotional relationship with a human. So like it's that Joaquin Phoenix movie, Her. I'm not so sure that that's a big barrier, because I can see it, even my Tesla, I feel like I almost feel an emotional connection with the car, because like when the car, for example, drives and then it's at a stop sign and it sort of tests itself a little bit, it's almost scared to go, and then I have to press the gas, say, it's okay, you can go. Like, I'm starting to have that relationship. It's not exactly the same relationship I have with my cat, but it's not that far away, because I feel like my cat probably doesn't understand most of what I say or do, but she definitely understands some. And the car right now certainly doesn't understand much, if anything, but it's only a matter of time. So anyway, I just want to put that as a tangent. Back to the key concept for my essay here right now is really the idea of menial work. So menial work, again, no risk, no creativity, and no fight. So transactional stuff, you fill in a spreadsheet, you write your marketing collateral, nobody's going to really criticize you, just do it, just get it out there, that kind of work. That's all going to be taken away. So, which is a good thing, actually, because it's going to open up humane jobs, the RFC type jobs. And that's more interesting, more fulfilling. It's going to create better citizens. It's going to require better education. People will have an incentive to go to college and actually learn something and not just play some sport and get a badge. All of these things, I think, there's no downside to this. Now, the second point I want to discuss is now, it's a critical conversation. It's a critique on the idea of abundance. And the reason what I'm bringing up here is the following. I'm questioning whether the marginal utility of wealth in society as a whole, and also within the decision makers that actually push the trajectory of society, which is what we call the elite, whether that is really an incentive. Because we in the US, we are under the premise that wealth creation is always up, 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 up. Right? That's the premise. It's the economy stupid, presidents get elected for jobs and wealth creation, blah, blah, blah. Same in China, by the way. We have the impression, I think, anecdotally and just sort of feeling-wise, that the Chinese Communist Party is there to maximize wealth creation. And I'm questioning that. And the reason I'm questioning that is there's one chart in my essay which charts wealth creation and status. And there's a good point to be made, or let's say just a point. There is a case to be made that actually the marginal utility of wealth as measured in status starts declining at some point. Now, the sort of easy way to explain that is that, look, if I go from poor to rich, or from rich to ultra rich, I really make a big jump. It makes a difference whether I have a nice house with ocean view and 5 cars and a beautiful marble kitchen and blah, 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 right? But at some point, I might not really care about my next private jet, or whether my house has the view that is even better than all the other houses. So my point is, my status starts decline, or there is no additional wealth creation actually even lowers my status, because number one, it makes it easier and easier for other people to attain the same limited resources that I have, whether it's, again, the house with the ocean view, or the nice car, or the trophy wife, or whatever it is that I'm after, the university, access to the elite university. So there's a case to be made that the elites actually have an incentive to limit wealth creation. And unfortunately, I have a feeling, this is just me talking out of my gut. This is not scientifically proven, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with economists or political scientists or even theoreticians in education, because it feels to me that in particular when it comes to education, the elites are actually actively trying to limit wealth creation. And the reason I say that is because, to me, I've always been scratching my head, why are the elite of the elite, like the top Ivy League universities in the Northeast in particular, why are they so socialist? Like, they're populated by rich kids, privileged, complacent, entitled. I mean, you can throw any word you want at these rich kids, most of them. I mean, it's not only, but certainly they call the shots. There, and the parents and the legacy and the family and blah, 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 right? So why are they so socialist? Because they shouldn't be, right? I mean, they are the epitome or the, what's the word? They're the super example of privilege, of separation, and all of that. Well, one explanation is that by introducing socialist policies into the education system, you're actually making it harder for real upward mobility, right? When I say real upward mobility, I'm just going to say it here. I believe that upward mobility that is engineered, such as the DEI and affirmative action, that's while maybe helping some underprivileged people overall, it lowers the standards for everybody, makes it harder for people to compete with the elites, and it gives the elites access to deciding who is actually going to compete with them, whether it's, again, like through DEI or affirmative action, and just makes the whole system less competitive. I mean, that's just the reality. Now, there's some, good things about that. Again, gives minorities access to education, which is a good thing, but it makes the whole thing a little bit less competitive and also limits wealth creation. So my point here is that there is actually evidence that there could be a disincentive for continuous wealth creation. And now my third point, and this is the conclusion, and this is now borrowed also from Nick Bostrom, is that no, I don't think so. I don't think that wealth creation has a limited marginal utility. Maybe we are in a phase right now where we, I would call it sort of peak limitation game, which means that we're still in this world where scarcity is an evolutionary factor. And that's why we have created this enormous wealth creation machine in conjunction with inequality, right? Because inequality only makes sense in a world of scarcity. You can only have inequality if things are scarce. Now, certainly the inequality has changed from people not having shoes and clothing and food towards people not having access to elite universities, not having access to the beach house with the beautiful view, not having access to maybe the nice Rolex watch, right? Those are the kinds of things that today's rich are using in their ostentation to separate themselves from everybody else. And the argument is that maybe with abundance and real more aggressive growth of wealth through abundance and driven by Moore's law and driven by AI and the opportunities of Gen AI and the much faster iteration, which allows for faster error correction, faster progress, we could actually have a world where maybe scarcity ceases to be an evolutionary constraint. And we actually really start thinking about doing what we will call, quote unquote, the right thing. For example, I'm a parent today. I'm going to teach my child to be competitive, to go for, to pursue his goals, to make sure he doesn't get shortchanged in life, work hard on all of those things. Now, I could do the same thing tomorrow in a world of abundance, but I might have an incentive to tell him, listen, it's actually okay not to work hard and then buy the house on the beach, because it's not really going to signal anything. If you want to live there because you enjoy it, fine. But if you want to do it for status signaling purposes, don't bother, because you're just going to look increasingly stupid. Here's a good example of even today where I would say we're reaching peak limitation game. There is a new BMW electric car in the market. It's about 3.5 to 4 times as expensive as a Tesla, but people still buy it because it gives them a little bit more prestige. And I would say that in the context of status signaling, this is increasingly looking like a stupid move. And you can still, there's some diehard BMW fans. There's people that just absolutely hate Tesla because of Elon Musk's policy. That's fine. But still paying 3.5, 4 times more for a car just because it has some old-fashioned signaling attached to it of wealth and separation, it just starts to look increasingly stupid. Sending your kids to most private universities, not all of them. There are some that I would say are worth their money. Actually, I went to one, which is the University of Chicago. I think it was worth every penny. But I would say, Stanford is worth it, and there's a couple of others. But overall, it starts to look increasingly stupid to send your child to a place like Colby or Pomona or whatever, which are, decent schools, but come on, you can get the same education in the UC system. You can get it if you can go to Europe. I mean, there's a lot of free opportunities to get the same level of education. So it starts looking more and more stupid. Now, they might say, yeah, but you need the alumni network. Well, really? But if it's already stupid to go there, how can the alumni network help you? So there's, there's still tribalism. There is exclusion. People will try to exclude each other from access to things. But my point here is that maybe maybe we live in a world of peak limitation game, and maybe that will actually eventually cease to be a classifier. So this is the hope, and the conclusion would be that then we can actually continue with progress, we can continue with optimism, with wealth creation, we can generate more knowledge, we can have a better world that is not whether Orwellian nor Huxleyan, because with more knowledge, we will also be better in detecting charlatans, Faucism, totalitarianism, liars, things like that, and have a better society, a society that is actually built on real knowledge creation, which again is the same as wealth creation, and with less and less incentive to signal status, we could actually almost appear, at least, to live in something close to a Marxian utopia. And you see how I'm sort of meandering here between condemning socialist policies in universities with the hope of getting to Marxian utopia. And I think this makes perfect sense, because if you skip every, if you just get rid of all the politics and the history and the legacy, you can argue that we should all be socialists, in a sense that we all, meaning really everybody, from rich to poor, particularly rich, should have an incentive to support everybody else in attaining their goals and dreams. It will make everybody better off. And having things like affirmative action and DI actually has nothing to do with helping people better off. It is a lot more a policy of helping the elites stay elite. And maybe wealth creation and abundance can help us break through this ice and enable a much better society. Thank you.